culture clash. And today I'm delighted to say that we're going to look at a case where a former police officer has won a legal challenge against a policy which records gender-critical expressions as non-crime incidents. Seems strange to me, surely, that something is either a crime or it isn't. And I'm delighted to say that my very good friend Andrew is with me this evening. Is that my naivety, or is this going on the whole time and this copper took a stand?
Yes, a lot of people don't realise it's going on. I mean, to give you an example of the extent, in a 5-year period between 2014 and 2019, there were 120,000 recorded incidents of non-crime hate incidents that were recorded by the police in England and Wales. It's an awful lot. They're spending an awful lot of time on this. It just so happens that a couple of years ago, they visited Harry Miller, who's an ex-police officer himself and an entrepreneur, and said that because he had retweeted an offensive poem, this was classified as a non-crime hate incident. They had to investigate. They sort of tackled with the wrong guy because he knows about the police force, and of course he took a stand, exactly that. So most people just sort of let it go. And the problem with these non-crime hate incidents, they're recorded against your name without your knowledge. They can show up on a disclosure and barring service check, so you might lose work. It's actually quite serious.
But the other thing which I found extraordinary reading it up, which again made my nostrils flare and what have you, it's the language, as it so often is when we discuss these. Non-hate crime, blah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's either against the law or it's not. And Harry brilliantly argued, said, there is no law against being offensive. I may offend you, but that's tough.
Exactly.
There is a line that you can cross and become a criminal. He was nowhere near that.
No, well, when the police officer said to him, kept referring to the victim, he said, but how can there be a victim when there hasn't been a crime? And what's really reassuring about this is now that it's gone to the Court of Appeal, and the Court of Appeal, and this was in association with the Free Speech Union, with Toby Young and Harry Miller's group, which is called Fair Cop, and they took this all the way to the Court of Appeal, and it has now been ruled, the judge made the statement clearly, that the recording, I've got it written here, the recording of non-crime hate incidents is plainly an interference with freedom of expression. Where all this comes from, actually, is from the College of Policing guidelines. This is actually the case has been against the College of Policing, because they've been telling police, you need to record non-crime hate incidents. And even worse, there doesn't need to be any evidence of hate for you to record it as a non-crime hate incident. The key determining factor, in fact, is perception of the victim. So to explain that, if someone said something to me that's a bit nasty, I could interpret that and say, oh, well, I think they did that because I'm gay, and I therefore think it's a hate crime against a protected characteristic. I phone the police. They don't have to look into it. They don't need to have any evidence. They just have to take my word, and it is recorded as a non-crime hate incident against that person. That's the situation. A lot of people don't realise this is going on. Yeah. The problem that I saw the College of Policing response to this today on their website. It looks very much like that they want to carry on with the practice of non-crime hate incidents, and they seem to be under the belief that they can just slightly modify their guidelines and still do it.
Potentially they are in for a huge shock, because as you and I know, but because many out there will know it as well, but let's make it crystal clear. You can pass a law that says don't do this anymore, or you can have case law. The appeal court has said this does not stand. In effect, that becomes the law and protects future Harrys.
Yes, and I'm fairly confident that even if the College of Policing think they can continue to do this, they're in for a bit of a shock. I think you're absolutely right. It's not going to happen. I think this is an absolutely landmark case. It's really going to help pull us out of this illiberalism that has been infecting our law enforcement agencies. It's really important that the police are not there to monitor what we think and the things that we say. That is not their role. And as you said, language can be a means to commit a crime through harassment, say, or things like, or libel, or what. That's not what's going on here. These are people who are causing offence, whether they intended to or not. I mean, this is the absolute key thing. But even if you intend to cause offence, that's still an aspect of free speech that we have to accept in a free society. So I'm really thrilled that the decision went this way. I just think there's still going to be a bit of a struggle to have it implemented. I mean, if in April of this year, Priti Patel did instruct the College of Policing to stop instructing police to record non-crime hate incidents, and they just haven't done it. They've just, as far as I can see, they've just ignored her request. It wasn't a request, it was an instruction, but it hasn't happened. So you see, there's still struggles that are going to go on. You have 30
seconds, slightly less, to predict whether Priti Patel, Home Secretary, will say, hang on a minute, I'm not having this.
Well, I assume that she definitely will. I mean, that's in her nature, isn't it? She doesn't take no for an answer. I would have thought so. I think the non-crime hate incident is over, ultimately. There will be a bit of a fight, but I think it will eventually go.
Fascinating, with great elucidation. Andrew Doyle, always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed.